They say amen, prayers go up, blessings come down. This is my first television show of politics or politricks. Normally, I do the show at 5 o'clock on 88.1 FM radio with a brother named Justin Barnett. Justin couldn't be here today, so, he sent his regards. And I want to start out by saying I feel privileged to be in this position. I was offered this opportunity by Mr. R.J. Watkins, and I just want to read a little something on what I found. On December the 20th, 1994, the college closed down, Highland Park College, the campus, and the station was sold to R.J. Watkins, owner of local powered station W33BY, then on Channel 68, which as W68 channel. Under Watkins, he formally reformatted the station as a local station that served the African American community in Highland Park area. Now, why is that important? Mr. R.J. Watkins is a centerpiece of the African American community, particularly in broadcasting. And not let me play down his sidekick, number one sidekick, Mr. Henry Tyler, who's also been instrumental in making this type of platform available to everybody in the African American community. As I was told by one of the callers who I am just so blessed to have in my circle, Lady Grace, if you don't own it, you just own it. Meaning that if we do not have access to black media, then we can always be kicked off for other medias, such as what happened to Tiffany Cross on CNN, or Don Lemon, Tiffany Cross, who was on MSNBC, and Don Lemon, who was on CNN. When they began to speak up for black people, they was kicked off the platform. So again, I appreciate this platform that I was brought into. And let me also mention Mr. Tim, who's I think producer engineer. That's what it's called. What drew me to this type of platform was the fact that my mom was in a nursing home for rehab, and she was sexually assaulted while there during what they call the pandemic, and it happened in January 2020. So when I found out February 2020 that the person who had sexually assaulted my mom was also a person who was on TV for beating up a 91-year-old senior citizen, we looked for a media outlet to express our view, our outrage, because I couldn't understand how this existed in today's time where there was no type of investigation, no one was really involved. So we went to different media outlets, and I understand they was busy at the time because there was COVID-19 going on. April 8, 2008, my mom was rushed to the hospital. She had been infected with COVID-19 by a staff member that worked at the home. She died. All right, I'm sorry. February 25th, 2020, she was rushed to the hospital. April 8th, 2020, she passed away. I wanted some type of recourse to address the issue of abuse in nursing homes. Come to find out that there was really none, and there was no lobbying for senior citizen nursing home. I became outraged about that. I'm like, well, where are the political figures for senior citizen? There was none. So 88.1 FM opened the platform up for me to come on. At that time, I was coming with my sister on another show to talk about what had happened to my mom. And I felt, and still feel, that senior citizens aren't being recognized and respected in today's society, particularly when it comes to abuses, nursing home by family, whatever. Thereby, his brother R.J. Walker's son invited me to do my own show called Real Talk with Tula Cabona. From there, I came involved in politics. So me and Justin Barnett came over to the name Politics or Politricks, you decide. Because what one person called politics may be a politrick to somebody else, right? And as our show go on, we're going to be able to break down certain things. I believe in facts and not fiction. What I present is what I present. If you got an issue with it, please call in. If I say something you feel is wrong, fact check me. The phone number to call in is 313-868-0342, 313-868-0351. 313-868-4336. Those are the numbers. Now, with that said, I want to say again, I thank God that I'm here, and I thank everybody who gives me this opportunity to be on this platform. As you can see behind me is all extraordinary people who contribute to our history as a people. On I think it was the left, this side here, you see Brother R.J. Walker's at the bottom. But I just want to say thank you. So let's get down to it. And I want to say, when I'm explaining politics, I want everybody to understand what I'm saying. The way I explain it, I want the poor person to understand, and I want from the poor person to the richest person to understand. The biggest the biggest non-voting bloc in America is the black community that's poor. That's a fact. A lot of poor blacks see no reason to vote simply because they do not understand politics, because civic duty isn't taught in school in the urban areas. Not even that, if you look at the proficiency rate of black children learning in schools is very low. So my thing is to bring the politics to the people in a way that people can understand, in hopes of learning why voting is a necessity. It's like breathing air. Because if you don't vote, somebody else control your life by making laws that mess up your life. Did you hear what I said? If you don't vote, somebody else is going to make laws that control your life that will mess up your life. So you got to put people in there that's going to vote your interests. And if they don't vote your interests, just get rid of them. So with today's, what we're dealing with the elections we're dealing with today. Now, everybody's seen a debate of what happened with President Biden and former President Donald Trump. And a lot of people seem to always say, well, Donald Trump is this and Donald Trump is that. Donald Trump is like he's a new phenomena of America's society. No, he's not. So I just want to break down a little history of how Donald Trump is a reflection of America from yesterday, right? Because we tend to forget history. We tend to forget how he became, as they say, the mega movement of today's society. There's a reason for that. So let me start with this, all right? And I want people to really, and like I said, if you got anything you want to say, please call me. Please call me, all right? President, this is starting with who the Republicans call Abraham Lincoln, who is as they say, he was a Republican. Because a lot of people don't know this information, man. Okay, so let me start. President Abraham Lincoln's primary goal during the Civil War was to preserve the Union. He wrote that if it were possible to keep the country intact without abolishing slavery, he would do so. Let me read that again. He even wrote that if it were possible to keep the country intact without abolishing slavery, he would. Do y'all clearly understand that? He said that. He initially was very, and I want y'all to hear this. While Lincoln did end slavery in the nation's capital in 1862 and urged the loyal border states to do so the same as early as in 1861, he initially was very earnest about keeping the war focused on the issue of preventing secession, meaning leaving. Part of the reason for this was that Lincoln knew that more Northerners, I want y'all to hear this, that more Northerners were concerned about secession than they were about slavery. Listen, more Northerners were concerned about secession than they were slavery. He did not want to lose their support by linking the Union cause to closely to abolition. So all this stuff that people be saying in 1861, this is when he said this. And this is to those Republicans that like to claim Lincoln as they hold him up as a trophy. Hey, Lincoln abolished slavery. He did not have an interest in that. Lincoln's first interest was to the Union. And later on, he abolished slavery. But he said, hey, told the Southern, hey, y'all don't see, y'all if you don't step away from the Union, then you can keep slavery. So let's keep going. Let me tell you what else Lincoln did, because I think this is important, because a lot of people tend to fail to really understand what this is about. On April 16, 1862, President Lincoln signed a bill emancipating enslaved people in Washington, making the end of a long struggle. However, to ease slave owners' pain, the District of Columbia Emancipation Act provided compensation to those loyal to the Union, up to $300 for every enslaved person freed. Yes, you read it correctly. Slave owners received reparations. It's a stark reminder that historically, slave owners often benefited more public losses than enslaved individuals themselves. So I want y'all to hear this again. Abraham Lincoln, April 16, 1862, gave slave owners reparations for every slave they freed, up to $300, which equals $9,000 today. It was called the Emancipation Act. Now, I know a lot of you didn't even know that, because they never taught us that. Republicans, do you own that as well? That's a problem. We can't get reparations today, and you gave it to slave owners. So at that time, William Lloyd Garrison, who was an abolitionist, pushed back on Abraham Lincoln, and he said, why would you give slave owners reparations and not give the enslaved reparations, who were the victim of slavery, which I'm paraphrasing. Of course, we see how that went. Then let's go to, and this is all stuff that I'm sharing with y'all, because we need to understand why are we dealing with today's politics, and who made that monster that we're dealing with today. Let's go. President Hayes, Rutherford B. Hayes. When Lincoln abolished slavery, he sent troops down there to monitor the South. That's what's called the Great Reconstruction period. So after he was assassinated, the Compromise of 1877, also known as the Wormley Agreement or the bargain of 1877, was an unwritten political deal in the United States to settle the intense dispute over the results of the 1876 presidential election, ending the filibuster of the certified results and the threat of political violence in exchange for an end to the federal reconstruction. Now, so what happened, Hayes said, okay, the South said, okay, we got a tug of war here. So if you stop the reconstruction and pull the soldiers out from the South, which was protecting black people, then we'll go ahead and concede that you won the election. Now, this was a comment that was made by somebody at that time. And instead, he should have sent additional troops out there, Clay said. An 1871 report to Congress says that in 9 counties in South Carolina, there were 35 lynchings, 262 black men and women were severely beaten, and over 100 homes were burned. The Ku Klux Klan was already riding roughshod. So that's another president who did that, right? So we had Lincoln, we have Rutherford B. Hayes. Rutherford B. Hayes said, okay, yeah, we'll put the soldiers out, long as I win, and you can have your way with them black people. We're going to end Reconstruction, which is one of our strongest parts after slavery, because black people got to vote. We have people protecting us. It's almost like pulling the police out of your neighborhood and telling the Ku Klux Klan or white supremacists, go ahead, do what you want with them. We ain't going to say nothing. That was equivalent to that. Rutherford B. Hayes did that. That's a president. So let's keep going. And I think this, people gotta understand. And then we had we had 13 different presidents. 13 different presidents, out of all the presidents of the United States, 12 of the founding fathers or presidents were slave owners. Let me get, and this is important because it leads to the context of where we are today, as far as this racist mentality that has always existed and continue to exist. So let me tell you what they are. Let's start. 1, Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson owned 600 slaves while in office. 2, George Washington. George Washington owned 317 slaves while in office. 3, Andrew Jackson. He owned 200 slaves while in office. Zachary Taylor. He owned 150 slaves while in office. James Madison owned 100 plus slaves while in office. James Monroe owned 75 slaves while in office. John Taylor, he owned 70 slaves. John Tyler, he owned 70 slaves while in office. James K. Polk, he owned 25 slaves while in office. Henry William Harrison, he owned 11 slaves while he wasn't in office. Andrew Johnson owned 8, he wasn't in office. Martin Van Buren owned 1 slave while he wasn't in office. And Ulysses S. Grant, he owned 1 slave while he wasn't in office. So we see the history. We have some of our most important, as they say, founding fathers who were slave owners. And to this day, there has not been any type of positive things done for black people as a result of that. So we can see where the history comes from. Let me keep going. So now we had, and this is important, in 1915, President Woodrow Wilson watched a movie called The Birth of a Nation, a film by D.W. Griffith that falsified the reality of post-Civil War Reconstruction period by presenting blacks as attempting to dominate Southern whites and sexually force themselves on white women. The Ku Klux Klan, KKK, is violently oppressing blacks, was ultimately betrayed by the production as the savior of the South whites female nobility. So The Birth of a Nation was done by D.W. Griffith. It was a Klan recruitment movie, and it was done to show that whites somehow was coming to save America from black men who were portrayed in the movie as savage and dogmatic. That's a fact. Abraham Lincoln showed the movie in the White House, and I'm gonna tell you, this is his exact words. It is like writing history with lightning. And my only regret is that it is all so terribly true. Shame on them. Second president. Let me keep going. Then we had Tricky Nixon. In the 70s, he came out with what they call the Southern Strategy. What is the Southern Strategy? The Southern Strategy was to recruit white Democrats back to the Republican Party. So they came up with a false theme, the war on drugs and crimes against black people, to make people think that the Democrats were soft on crime and the only one that could save them from that savagery of black men or black people in general who had this criminal element and was trying to take over America by being criminals and we was out of order was the white Republicans. So they began to say and appeal to white people in a way that was a dog whistle that was racially subtle for to pull them back into the Republican Party, and it worked. Then Ronald Reagan just took it even further. Period. He did that. Began to create the crack laws and everything else that morphed out of that. So Nixon started the Southern Strategy, and Ronald Reagan, he solidified it. Then we had, and we got to tell the truth, shame the devil. Then we had the 1994 crime bill, which at that time, black men was called super predators. So if we look at history, what Donald Trump is, he was already made. So when people tell me, oh, I'm shocked that he act this way, I'm not. I'm not. It was already laid down for this to happen that way. When we look at the Southern strategy started by Nixon, and we look at white people who prescribe to a racist mentality, I'm not shocked by it at all. So when you look at the history of the Southern strategy and what's going on today, a lot of the so-called mega movement, and I can say this unequivocally, if we look at what happened January 6, 2020, that was a byproduct of the Southern strategy itself. That was a byproduct of the history of America in general. There was a byproduct of that. Try. Hello?
Hello, Tula.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, how are you?
Hi, Tula. This is Amanda.
How you doing? Good.
I just want to say congratulations on your new TV show.
Thank you.
I love it. And I think it's very important the date that today is and the difference that you're making yourself for the African American community on July 4th. That is amazing. And I just want to be the first to say that this is your first TV show of forever, because I can foresee you becoming a wonderful political activist for your community and doing big things. I am so excited to be seeing you.
Okay.
I am probably one of your biggest fans, Tula.
All right. Thank you so much.
And I just want a quick question.
Sure.
So is this going to be now instead of your radio show at 5 p.m. on Thursdays?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure. Okay, Tula.
Thank you so much.
I'll be watching you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, Amanda was a regular call on the radio show, so she called now. So, right, thank you. I appreciate that. And my hopes is to make a difference. So when we look at the Southern strategy and what we're dealing with now, it was already morphing into that, to what we see now. So when people say, I am shocked that the Republicans act the way they do, I'm not. And you shouldn't be. With the history of America, what we have to be real about is, have America really addressed racism that poison the political atmosphere of this country? No, we haven't. We haven't. So why are we shocked now that we have a president, a former president, that we say foments racism in general? So let's have a conversation, because I'm gonna push back a little bit on the Democrats too. President Biden did the debate last week. A lot of people felt that he was off his rocker, wasn't able to focus. He was a little bit disgruntled. Some people say they call him Sleepy Joe, which I find to be offensive. He's a senior citizen. So the first thing they wanted to do, the Democrats, well, we got to find somebody else to take over his spot. He need to resign. And I'm going to say this. Most of us understand that when somebody's 81 years old, they're a senior. They're not going to function as they normally would. That doesn't mean that they're not smart people. They just need a little more help than they would when they was younger. Most African Americans, I can say this unequivocally, we are used to dealing with and taking care of our senior citizens. So when some of us seen Joe Biden on stage, we was frightened of his responses and his conduct, but we wasn't to the point that we wanted to say, oh, remove him, he can't function. Right? Because we understand senior citizens get tired, right? So when I heard people immediately coming out saying, oh, we got to get rid of Joe, and, he's not doing good, and he won't be able to function as an 81-year-old man. But Donald Trump is 78 years old, 3 years younger than Joe Biden. Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the House, if I'm correct, she's 83 years old. Correct? Mitch McConnell, the head of the Republicans, he's also an older gentleman who's retiring this year, right? But everybody wanted to focus on Joe Biden and his actions or behavior during the debate. Nobody focused on all the lies, let's talk about it, all the lies that was said during the debate by Donald Trump. Nobody said anything about that. That's a problem. Everybody wanted to focus on Joe Biden's conduct, and he didn't like he could function. But we're going to come back to that. And the first thing they wanted to do, now this is what bothered me. They wanted to go with Newsom, Whitmore, and I think somebody named Superior, if I'm correct. And if somebody's listening, they'll call, they can call in and correct me if I'm wrong. But they never said nothing about Kamala Harris. Why? And at that time, and we're talking about Democrats who did this. We're talking about Democrats who did this. This is Democrats who did this, who refused to acknowledge Kamala Harris. At that time, I realized that it was the monster of racism. I'm going to say it. It was the monster of racism rearing its head up again in the so-called Democratic Party. So they had to be forced to say chokingly, I want Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris deserves that. She's the vice president for a reason. She's a very intelligent woman who just so happened to be black. Why would you overlook her? Because let me tell you why. Just by the history I just read you, America, some people in America, do not want them to have a black woman for the president of the United States. There you go. The quiet part said out loud. Let's be honest about that. Let's not play games. Let's not come to the table, break bread, and at the end of the day, you throw my food, my cups out when I leave out the house because you didn't want a black man or black woman eating off your plate. No, let's have a conversation. Throw the place out while I'm sitting here. Tell me how you really feel. That you did not want a black woman who's qualified. Listen. She's qualified to be the president of the United States. I mean, what was she chose for to be the second in command if she couldn't be the first in charge? Let me say it again. Why was she chose to be the second in command, but she couldn't be the first in charge? That's like you've been hired to be under the CEO, and the CEO gets sick, and they tell you, oh, you the second in command? I'm sorry. We're going to get somebody else to come run the company, and you still going to stay the second in command. No, the second in command get the next steps up. And I like what Brother Al Sharpton said. He said that all these people now want to come out and say all this stuff about Kamala Harris and who they want, and they want to challenge her. Why didn't you run in a campaign against her, as she did? She did run in a campaign to be president of the United States. Why didn't you do that? I mean, let's be real. Let's have a conversation, family. There is racism in the Democratic Party, too. Let's not act like it's not racism in the Democratic Party. Because if it was not racism in the Democratic Party, House Bill 40 would have already been passed. Or it would have been a hearing. They would have did what they had to do. And they would have gave black people reparations like they did the Japanese Americans in 1988 for what happened to them in 1942 in America when they was placed in them concentration camps, or reparation they gave the Native Americans who they pillaged and raped and robbed. They did that. So when you tell me you're a Democrat and it's time for you to show your humanity as far as being invisible or ignoring color, you don't do that, right? And what I mean by ignoring color is not to take color in consideration when you're making your decisions. Because you did that. When it came to Kamala Harris, you did that. And look, and this is true. Black people are watching. Watching in terms of our voting block. and a lot of pundits are saying on TV that if they do not pick Kamala Harris, if President Biden decides not to run, and they do not pick Kamala Harris, I will almost guarantee you it'll be a backlash. Listen, a backlash. For real. Because all we've ever wanted was just to be respected. Nobody has been able to tell me why Kamala Harris is not qualified to run this country. Nobody. She's second in command. And if you don't like her being black, then say that. It's okay. You fit in today's time. You can put on a mega hat, be a Democrat if you want to, if you prescribe to a racist mentality, right? Facts. You can do that. But don't try to play with us as if we stupid. You looking at everybody else and you overlooking her. Ralph Ellison wrote a book called The Invisible Man. We used to being invisible. But what we not going to do is be disrespected. Facts. And we see what's going on. Now, President Biden, do I think my opinion, he should stay in there. He's a senior citizen. He have done a lot for America. I mean, compared to Donald Trump, a man who said put bleach in your arm when COVID-19. Now, call him. Oh, okay. So now we want to think about this. Donald Trump is charged with 91 felonies. And I'm not talking about his convictions. I'm not talking about his felonies. I don't do all that. I'm not harping on him for that. Okay, we got a caller. Go ahead, caller. Okay. All right, call back, whoever you were, please. So I just want to say this. Think about it. Some of us who got family members who have been incarcerated or are incarcerated won't even go visit them, right? Let them get a felony conviction. You are like they the worst thing on the planet. And you want to vote for a president who got 91 felony convictions? 30. Okay, go ahead, caller. Caller, go ahead.
Hey, Tulip, glad to see you on TV.
Hey, how you doing, Tia? How are you?
Hey, good. I was like, wait a minute, Tulip on TV.
I appreciate it, man. I'm a little nervous, but I'm hanging in there. Go ahead.
No, you doing just like you normally do on your show. You doing perfectly fine.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I just wanted to speak to quickly what you said about people talking about Sleepy Joe, and I'm hearing a lot of the media hit Joe Biden about his performance because he had a couple of brain freezes and a little stumbling over his words. But I just want to say, Trump is not the person to call Uncle Joe Sleepy Joe. Trump slept through the majority of his trial.
You're right.
No one's talking about that. Many instances, a few instances where he literally, your life is on the line. You looking to fight being a convicted felon, and you laying up there nodding off and sleeping in your own trial.
Right.
I mean, same behavior. So no one.
Hey, Tia, hold on. Tia, let me say this. What'd you say? His own what? Trial.
His own trial.
Right. Go ahead.
He shouldn't even be running for president. You got people in the southern state that may commit a petty crime or they turn it into a felony of some sort, and they can't vote at all.
Facts.
Some states you can never vote because you are a felon. Donald Trump, 34 convictions. Okay, he is a felon in the state of Florida.
Right. Facts.
Where if you are a felon, you can't vote.
Facts.
That's in the state of Florida, and he is a resident of the state of Florida. That means, you shouldn't be running for president because guess what? You can't even vote.
Facts.
You can't vote for yourself. Every president casts their own vote. He can't even cast a vote for himself. He shouldn't even be running for president. You should not be running for president if you're a convicted felon. End of story with that. But just to show the comparison, Trump fell asleep in his own trial. That's life or death right there. You can't call nobody Sleepy Joe.
Fact.
Every question that they ask, and I don't look at TV, but I listen to the radio, so I listen to the debate. So I don't get caught up in optics. I'm listening to what's being said.
That's why I am. Absolutely.
So every question that they asked Joe Biden, he answered it to the best of his ability. He had the first 2 minutes. He answered to the best of his ability. Donald Trump had another minute or two to respond and rebut. And Donald Trump answered about 30% of the questions that they asked him. When Biden answered 95% of the questions, and not all of the questions that they asked him.
Facts.
Okay? So again, you have a sleepy ex-president, convicted felon who can't answer questions about health care, about child care, about Social Security. He dodged so many questions talking about Mar-a-Lago and golfing and, oh, I took a competency test. Oh, yeah, prove it. Again, he talked about everything that surrounded himself. He did not address most of the topics. He talked about tariffs, and he also talked about accomplishments that were done under other presidencies,
Facts.
under Obama administration,
Facts.
under Clinton administration.
Facts.
He talked. I think he had one thing that he dealt with. Can't remember what it was. That's just how.
Yeah, he talking about prison reform. But that was already in the making. You know.
You know what? Here's the thing. The highest unemployment we have ever seen was under Trump, 20% unemployment, and that was brought on because of the pandemic, which was COVID.
Right.
Okay, nobody was working except essential workers. Period. Okay, and then the highest, and then that's another thing too, is that the inflation. He wants to talk about inflation under Biden. The highest inflation I have ever seen since I've been born, and I've been here a little over 50-something years, is under Trump.
Facts.
During COVID, when a can of Lysol, people were selling it for $20.
Facts.
Or you had shortages in food, shortages in cleaning products, shortages in everything. So we had shortages, and we had the highest prices and price gouging during Trump's administration that he did nothing about. Then he placed tariffs on China. Here's the deal. A lot of our masks and some of our stuff like that were coming from China.
Facts.
And he put tariffs on that. He tore this country up because he ignored coronavirus in 2019, and he left the borders open for who? Europeans.
He did that.
And they had a very high rate of deaths when Corona first started. Again, I'm just saying to myself, people need to really listen to the debate and stop looking at the debate.
And Tia, but this is the thing, though. I mean, to me, it's like, and I did an analogy in my head, you know, because we kind of black people, we kind of give an analogy to family. We identify, a lot of us identify analogies. We got the uncle that we know is slick. We got Slick Willie uncle, but we got the uncle. He's a little slow in his mobility, but Uncle's smart. Unc's smart. So now, who we gonna hang out with when we got money in the bank we want to invest? Do we want to hang out with the slick uncle that everything he tell you is a lie? He say good morning, you got to go look outside and make sure the sun up, right? Because he just can't be truthful. You leave your girl with him, he trying to fill on your girl. You know what I'm saying? Or we want to go with uncle who might just need a little help getting up, but Uncle's smart. You give him his rest, he good. And that's how I look at the presidency, Tia. You know, you got Slick Willie, Donald Trump, or we got President Biden, who's just, and I'm telling you, Tia, I'm where you at. We have to understand, United States Supreme Court just ruled this week. They gave Donald Trump absolute immunity from crimes. Basically. What do you think that man is going to do if he get in office? You really think he's going to leave office? He's not leaving office.
They passed it back to the state of New York, and now the state of New York is saying it's going to take them up until September to try to rifle through everything that he did to figure out if he has immunity, if he doesn't have immunity. Guess what? That's basically saying, he's got immunity.
But you got to say, they talking about is it official or unofficial? Listen, if he get in office, Project 2025, let me shout out to Tia, the person I see talking on the phone. We talked about this. She started putting me up on this in January. In February or March, we did a whole radio show on Project 2025. And she told me about Agenda 47. YouTube that. They're going to implement that under the Harris Society. He already got a playbook. I'm Tia, this is my prediction. For all those in the hood, listen, I want my people to listen. From the hood to the burbs, it's real. If Donald Trump get in office, he's not leaving office. I have no doubts in my mind with what the Supreme Court is giving him. That man is not going to leave office, and it's going to be just like Germany in the late 1930s, early 40s, a Hitler movement. That's my prediction.
And let me piggyback off your prediction. Not only is he not going to leave office, he's going to have an office set up. So in the event that, because he up there in age too, in the event that he's mentally incompetent, or he dies from natural causes or disease, or if he gets assassinated, they still have that vice presidential candidate in place, and the Constitution will be wiped out. The amendments will be wiped out, and it will still be under a dictatorship rule. So it doesn't matter, even if he's still in office. The Republican Party is the one who put together, along with the Heritage Foundation, who put together Project 2025. I've been reading this thing since 2023. And I'm telling you, the Republican Party, they say that Project 2025 is for whoever the president is, the Republican president is going to be that comes into power in 2025, whether it's Trump or not. They know it's going to be Trump. He's going to usher it in. But once it turns into a dictatorship, it's going to remain that way when Trump leaves. Again, I'm really pissed off to even hear Gretchen Whitmer got the nerve to try to get together with other governors and talk about replacing Biden. She's sitting in a pot of stew herself. I'm not even about to go down why I can't stand Gretchen Whitmer. I'm not about to do that, besides the fact that she killed a lot of our African-American people during COVID and just act like it didn't happen. But when we're talking about older people in office, here's my thing. I don't harbor ageism. There are a lot of sharp, seasoned citizens, not senior, seasoned citizens that handle business, okay, and know how to get it done and are still, quick on their feet. Thurgood Marshall, he was 91. I think was he 91? No, he was 91. He was 93, I think, or something like that, when he left the Supreme Court. That's how old he was. He was not 93, I'm sorry, 83. He was 85 when he died. And he died 2 years after he retired from being a Supreme Court justice. He was 83 and a Supreme Court justice. And he was still making relevant decisions at that time. Trump and Biden are very close in age. Biden has done some things that has benefited all people.
Facts.
Like student loan things of that nature. But he hasn't done much of anything. He worked for HBCUs, but he hasn't done much of anything for African American people and the way of voting and the policing laws. He will not do it, and nothing has been done with reparations. And I would say this too, love. African American people will never get reparations from the United States. And I think African American people need to pursue reparations from the United States and quite a few countries in Europe and all over the globe, because slavery benefited everyone, not just the United States. It benefited everyone that the United States made trades with off the backs of African American people that were human trafficked over here. We need to be seeking reparations all over the globe, but we're not going to get it. It's just not going to happen because the power structure is white, and they will never give up their power if they give us reparations. That would give us too much power. It's not going to happen. But as far as ageism is concerned, Uncle Joe is Uncle Joe. He's getting things done under his administration.
Well, I'm gonna say this to you. I mean, that's why I decided to do politics or politricks. You decide. When I began to really understand it, because I could have just stayed with one show, but I began to understand the danger of what we aren't taught here, and you and I talk about this. We aren't taught to be politically savvy in a productive way, right? We don't understand the power of politics. Politics control money, how money is regulated, right? Mm-hmm. And we have to understand
money
that
and power.
Right. We have to understand that in order for you to get your community together, you got to put people in there who's going to use their political sway to motivate your community and get it changed. It ain't just about having a bunch of money, because they pass a law saying you can't put it in the bank because you black. I mean, what you gonna do? keep it at home. But I'm just saying in general, we have to understand the importance of politics, and particularly nowadays, Tia, because I'm saying this unequivocally, that if Donald Trump get in power, he's not leaving office. They already put in play. The founder of the Heritage Foundation was on a show called The Weekend last week on CNN. MSNBC. I'm sorry, and he stated when they start, if Donald Trump getting elected, they're gonna fire all the people on the educational board. They said they got to fire at least 50,000 governmental workers that works in Washington, D.C., and they're going to install people they call Trump loyalists who do not have empathy. Listen, who has no empathy toward your pain. They are there to strictly do what he tells them to do and keep him in power. And they're going to do that. I was watching something today, Tia. I think it was on CNN. Yeah, CNN, where they had one of the reporters. She wanted to talk to 3 black women and 2 white women, right? And they was talking about what changed their mind about the debate. Someone was undecided. It was 3 out of 3 black women. 2 of them said, well, I'm still going to ride with Joe Biden. Donald Trump is a cesspool of corruption. He tell lies. I'm paraphrasing. One black woman said, the 2 white women said, well, I'm still going to vote for Trump. And I'm thinking to myself, hold on. If a guy told you that he had 91 felonies and he wanted to work for you, you would not hire that guy. Some brothers we can't get jobs in 1 felony. 1.
Well, you know what, Tula? This goes back to what Donald Trump said when he was running for president, that he could walk up and shoot somebody on the street and get away with it.
But Tia, why?
So when you have African American people of that same mind frame that would still vote for him as he done showed you.
I'm gonna talk about that, because that to me is brainwashed. I just wasn't able to do it today because I had to put my show together real quick. But Tia, why? And let me tell you why, Tia. Let's say the quiet part out loud. Some people have been wishing for this moment to come true again since 1776. They want America, some people, do not apply to all people. They want America to be dominated like it was in the 18 and 1700s, where white people who are racist have all the power and they control everything, period. That's just my opinion. I can't understand why. Now, if you don't want to break bread with a guy who got a felony, but you want to vote for somebody who has a felony, help me understand this. I mean, for real. If a person said, oh, yeah, all right now. If a person said, oh, yeah, Donald Trump being convicted of sexual assault so I'm trying to figure out, Tia, what is the key? And Tia, it comes back to me, is racism. That's all I can think about.
We're not even just talking about the 34 felonies. Remember, he's also convicted of sex crimes, sexual assault, and essentially tax evasion. He still got other felonies, other charges on top of the ones that he already has. Again, when they talk about the ageism piece, so far as Biden, Uncle Joe and Trump, I don't like either candidate, period. But what I don't like is how the media is really flashing Uncle Joe and his,
come on,
tripping over a few words or whatever, and they're saying absolutely nothing about Trump.
Man,
the black job statement that he made, the Mexican. What's a black job? What that look like?
Right.
Because I want to see the difference between a black job, a Mexican job, and a white job. What do white jobs look like?
Right.
Trump,
right.
Come on out and say that. So nobody is talking about the ridiculous answers that he gave. Of the 30% of the answers that he gave, he didn't even answer all of the questions, and he stood up there talking about golfing in Mar-a-Lago and stupid stuff. And nobody's talking about that. The whole debate to me was a debacle. If I only had the one debate and I had to choose the presidency, I wouldn't vote. Wow. Because neither one of both of them were piss poor. Luckily, they're supposed to have 2 more debates. We'll see how it goes. And I would love to see how Kamala debates Trump's VP choice.
Man,
which we still haven't heard.
All right, Tia. Well, I got to keep moving.
All right, take care, Tula.
Hey, I appreciate. Hey, now I want y'all to know, Tia's the one that started talking about Project 2025. Let me put that out there. She been rating this bill since January.
Tula, you the one that put it on your show.
I
That's
did
what
that,
matters.
but I'm saying
That's what matters.
I did put it on the show, but you the one rung the bell, and I appreciate that. All right, Tia,
All
thank
right,
you
take
so
care,
much.
Tula.
All right, then.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, yo. So listen, I love passionate callers. I love people call in, and we have these type of discussions because I want to hear what the people talking about. But Tia's right. What type of this? Okay, all right, 3 minutes. Okay. What type of choice that we have to make when it comes? So this is my bold prediction. I told my uncle this. My bold prediction is, if President Biden decides not to run, Kamala Harris will be the person next in line, because she the only one can have access to the Democratic Party money. Facts that Joe Biden has raised since, he's on the Democratic ticket. And I'm going to say she's going to pick for Vice President Newsom from California to be her vice president. If Kamala Harris is lifted up, if Kamala Harris is a nomination for the Democratic Party, she's going to pick Newsom to be her running mate. That's what I'm going to pick. That's my belief. But I just want to say thank everybody watching my first show. I'm a human being, so I can openly say I was a little nervous. But, I have more content. I like showing videos and stuff. But I appreciate it, man. I appreciate having this platform. But we got to understand what type of times we're in. And the history I shared with everybody, we got to understand Donald Trump he's not a one-off. He was made just by the history I laid down. So now what they call the Southern strategy back then, it's called the Southern strategy in life now. Did you hear what I said? The Southern strategy that Nixon implemented to get Democratic whites to come to the Republican Party, to have a radical mindset, exists now. Now, I want y'all to imagine this, and I want y'all to think. I'm going to leave y'all with two things. In January 6, 2020, if a whole bunch of black people ran up to the White House and tried to get in there and to try to protest or get mad about Barack Obama, do you think the outcome of justice would be different? If a black man was trying to run for president, he had just 91 felonies pending, convicted of 34 of them, found guilty of fraud, do you think that people will really be having him as a nomination for president? Like Tia said, you got people in Louisiana, Alabama, and Florida. They got felony convictions, can't even vote. Donald Trump got 90, he's been convicted of 34 of them. Will he be able to vote? And I'm just saying this because people always tend to compromise when it comes to black people. They compromise, I changed my mind. Well, just say what it is. I'm voting for him because he's a white man. And I want white men to dominate this country. I don't want to have a black president that's a female, especially a black woman, running this country. Say what it is. Say the quiet part out loud. All right, y'all. I appreciate everybody. And like I said, the name of the show is Politics or Politricks. You decide. Power to the people. Power to the people. Power to the people. Thank you so much. And I'll see y'all next week. Thank you.